Hi and welcome. Today I have a art tag for you. I start with Bristol smooth paper cut on my Cricut, but use whatever you got. It can even be an art card, doesn't have to be a tag. And I'm using a stamp from Faded Type, and let's see, I'm using Pebble Beach Archival Ink. And I'm just kind of going down it, filling in areas. Doesn't have to be perfect. I prefer it not to be. And I'm using this stencil from Tim Holtz. I'll have the number in the description. And it's one I don't use too often. So I decided to pull it out and use it. I'm applying some Crackle texture paste. I ran out of Tim Holtz brand, the Distress brand, and I was ordering from a Simon Says Stamp, I think. And so I went ahead and just ordered the Ranger brand. So that's what I'm using here. Before it dries, so I'm doing it, I mean it's not going to dry for a little while, but I bring out some glazes, some embossing glaze, and I'm just putting it over the texture paste, and it will grab into the texture paste. I mean, you could brush it off once it's dry, but it will kind of lay into it. And I think I didn't put really too much on. I was trying to, not be wasteful. But I had some blank spots, but it doesn't bother me. So if it bothers you, just make sure you cover up all your blank spots. So I'm use speckled egg, cracked pistachio, and that is antique linen. And so I'm just going to kind of dance it around the tag a little bit to move it around to make sure at least most of it's covered up. I think there were a couple spots that did not get it, but that was enough. So you have to let it dry, and once it's dry, you can come in with your heat tool. I use an embossing gun and finish embossing it. You don't want to do it before the texture paste is dry because then it will bubble. I mean, if you want that look, that's fine, but I went ahead and let it dry and then embossed it. And still pliable. That's one thing about this texture paste, and Tim Holtz texture paste is very pliable. So now I'm going to fill in the back areas, and it's not going to change the color of the glaze, but it's going to kind of lay in the cracks and crevices. And underneath I'm using tumbled glass, shabby shutters, vintage photo, and then I add some water just to kind of move it around some. So you might say, why did you go ahead and stamp it if you're... And that's a fair question. Because really, it's very, at the end, it's very little, you can even see it. I am spraying some distress on here. I do distress crushed olive, and I do distressed fossilized amber, just because those, I don't have that many of them, and so those kind of complemented or went with the colors that I was using. So now look at the shine that is giving. Oh, that shimmer. That is so pretty. The crushed olive especially. And so I dry that up. So well, I was going to use that flower, but I ended up not using that flower. I'm adding some vintage photo, or I think it's walnut stain because it's so dark. Yeah, I'm using walnut stain on the edges. Vintage photo just probably would not have been dark enough. And there's that one area there that just needed a little something. So I'm taking my mowed lawn distress crayon and a little bit of water and just adding it in there just to kind of give it so it's not a little white on top of there. But honestly, it wouldn't matter because my collage is going to go on top of that spot. So I have some pieces selected. Everything except for the sentiment is a digital download. I'll have them listed in the description. But I want to give them all a vintage photo edge so the edges aren't white. This piece here, okay, this piece is not a digital download. This is one of Tim Holtz ideology papers. And I had a part of a page left that kind of went with these colors. And so I just took a punch and punched out a little section of it. And it's going to go well, but it had a little blank area. So I went ahead and took the Pebble Beach and this one of my favorite obscure text stamp pads, and it's on the obscure stamp set, and because it really, you can't tell what it says, so you know it's writing. I mean, you can even tell which way it should go, but it you can't really read it. So I just stamped that on there, and that's going to be part of the collage. And then I have this butterfly. I would say it's more blue than green, but hey, blues and greens go. And I do have that speckled egg glaze on there, and there was tumbled glass, so there is some blue in there. Now there's a lot of texture paste, and so you just want to make sure that you hold it till it has time to like grab what's underneath it. If you don't, it might just peel up. That happens to me a lot if I don't hold it down. And the butterfly is going to go just kind of positioned on top of them. I usually only put glue on the body of it, not the wings, so that it looks like it could fly away at any moment. And then not the last thing. I'm going to give it a sentiment, and I'm using Tim Holtz Small Talk. I wanted a black one, and I selected Collect Beautiful Moments. is a sticker, but I glue them down just to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. And the last thing I'm going to do is the ribbon. And I'll try to call out the colors, but honestly, I probably used a half dozen colors here, just trying to get a suitable color. I probably should have just used like antique linen and left it at that. But I used fossilized amber, I used crushed olive, and those are the first two. And together, it just looked like a really awful yellow. So then I added vintage photo. And then I added mowed lawn. And then I added, let's see, I sprayed old paper. And my point is, sometimes you just have to figure it out on the fly and make it work. So you look at something, oh, I don't like that. And so what could I add to change it? Well, in this case, it was the vintage photo. And then I thought, well, okay, but maybe a little green. So there comes the mowed lawn. And so, you just kind of work it till you got it. And if that doesn't work, I mean, it's only ribbon. You can just toss it and start over. But I end up doing something acceptable and left it at that. And that's all I'm doing for today. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you have not subscribed, I invite you to do that. If you like this piece, give me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. Other than that, I just hope you have an awesome day. And I'll see you next time. I have final pictures coming up, so if you want to stay tuned for them, that would be fine. And I'll see you next time.